afternoon, everybody, and today we're live 3 ESPN with BL, and we're going to do NFL Free Agency podcast. So let's first start out the AFC East. We're going to go all the way from the Bills to the Seahawks. So here we go. So the Bills, they were decent last year. They re-signed Lorenzo Alexander. It doesn't hurt. Look, he had 12.5 sacks. On the other hand, he's 33 years old. He's never going to have a year like that again. I guess it could help him in the short term. And you're not going to repeat this in your 13th year. And also, look, they also got Micah Hyde. Again, he was a key player on the Packers on their secondary in years past, and it will not make up for the loss of Stephon Gilmore, but Hyde is versatile. He's played corner. He has played safety. He's guarded against the slot. He's done kind of everything for the Packers, a key player on their secondary as they're really had a lot of injuries. And then they have not re-signed Zach Brown, one of the better linebackers in the league. I've not heard any word on that. And they let their two best receivers go, or two out of their three, Robert Woods and Marquise Goodwin. And if they can get Zach Brown back, it would really help their defense. And this team, they're decent. They're not going to win the East, obviously. There's the Patriots. The Dolphins, they look a little better, obviously. So now let's move on to them. So you signed Kenny Stills. That's a good signing. He is a good quality receiver. He made a lot of good plays for them last year. He's a good number 2, number 3. And maybe he'll get better, maybe he won't. And they re-signed Rashad Jones. They got Andre Branch from the Patriots. He's not a great pass rusher, but he'll bring some sacks in. And then also, their defense, they got Lawrence Timmons, who was for 10 years, was one of the better defenders on the Patriots, was a solid athletic linebacker for them, made a lot of plays for them, was on the Super Bowl team and many other good teams for them as well. And you re-signed Kiko Alonso again. How does he stay healthy? He's had injury problems. And it looks like he's going to stay in the Dolphins after bouncing around from Buffalo and Philadelphia. He's there to stay. And then you look at what they have with the offense. Tannehill, is he healthy for a full year? Got hurt right before the playoffs. Jay, is he going to rush for 200 yards 3 times in a year? Probably not, but he's a really good solid running back. Jarvis Landry, they're a second-place team. New England's obviously first, have been first. That is not going to change. No chance of that. And they'll be in the playoffs for 2 straight years. So the Patriots, you win the Super Bowl, and then you improve. Stephon Gilmore, one of the better lockdown cornerbacks in the game, and then you trade for Brandon Crooks, which he brought great speed to the Saints last year. He was a speed receiver. That's what his strength was. Now you bring him, good option alongside Chris Hogan for the deep ball. And I've heard some reports of Malcolm Butler being traded to the Saints. I don't know if that's going to happen. Kind of flip-flop that pick since that 32nd pick originally went to New Orleans. I don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, we'll see. It's going to be on hold for a while. So Dante Hightower. Now here's what I was thinking of him. He was thinking about going to the Jets. More money, right? And then I can be maybe a bigger name here in New York. But then he thought, wait a minute. I'm not going to the Jets. Why would I want to play for the Jets? I'm going to take slightly less money so I can win more. And that was a great decision by Hightower. It was a great re-signing. And another thing I want to mention, when you look at Jamie Collins, they traded him. I was shocked at the time. And due to the salary cap and stuff, they had to re-sign one of them. And they obviously picked Hightower, which I think that was the better decision since Collins was gone. And there you go. So I feel like all along they wanted to go with Hightower. Maybe that was a sign when they traded Jamie Collins back in October. And then you've also had Rex Burkhead again. You already have James White, Dion Lewis. Burkhead, he's not that great of a pass-catching running back. Maybe he'll be the guy that gets more of the carries next year. And then you get Dwayne Allen. So insurance for a Gronk injury, which has happened multiple times. They have deep playoff runs without Gronk. And he's cheaper than Martellus Bennett. I think he'll be there a few years. So again, great option to have. And the Patriots, here's a storyline. Win 3 Super Bowls in 4 years and be the first team to repeat since themselves. That's right. They repeated. No one's repeated since then. And I think they're going to repeat and do something that only they've done in the past 10 years. Now let's talk about the Jets. Fun, right? They're clearly the worst team in the division. Certainly. I mean, is there anyone better than the Jets in the AFC East? And really, in the NFL? That's debatable. They could be one of the worst teams in the league. Now, who's their quarterback? Who's going to play quarterback with him? Josh McCown? He's 38 in training camp. You expect him to be the quarterback? Really? Bryce Petty? He wasn't any good last year. He was terrible. Christian Hattenberg? He's not even close to ready yet. They don't have a quarterback, and they have not had one, a solid, good quarterback, probably since Brett Favre, and he was 39 almost 10 years ago. They have not had a quarterback. Geno, he was okay, might have had a few moments. He was never that good. Mark Sanchez, he was carried by a great defense, so obviously look better for winning 2 playoff games, 3 playoff games, 4 playoff games, whatever. They haven't been back to the playoffs since. You obviously had a washed up Michael Vick. I mean, he had to play since Geno got hurt, and then you had Ryan Fitzpatrick. He was really good for a year, and then just really blew it against the Bills in the last game of the year. I think he threw 3 interceptions, and then you went back to him. He was awful. He threw 6 interceptions in a game, and then had 9 in a span of 2 games. I mean, they have not had a solid, consistent quarterback really since Chad Pennington. He hasn't even played a game for them in 10 years, and he got hurt some of those years, and they never even made it out of the second round, so you have not had a quarterback in 10 years. Yes, Brett Favre was there for a year and was okay, and they just don't have a quarterback. Now, what do? Do you draft a Deshaun Watson? He's a clear winner here, but he has some issues. Do you draft Deshaun Kaiser? He definitely has some skills, but he's raw. Or do you draft a Trubisky? I don't know what they're going to do. My advice is draft a quarterback, or you give a chance on Hattenberg. They drafted him in the second round. He's obviously not. Goff or Wentz, they were taken. And the Jets, they've been bad, but not awful. They can't get that great franchise quarterback. So bad, not bad enough. That's obviously frustrating. And they're done. They're done. You know, we saw in 2015, they're going to the playoffs, or we thought they were. They couldn't get in because they thought, you know what, we have a good veteran team. Maybe we can find a way to go, and Brandon Marshall go. They had to do it. I mean, really, production being cut in half, you can't really pay for that. Nick Mangold, again, he was getting old. Great center for years, but not anymore. Fitzpatrick, again, it was time for him to leave. He's not the answer at quarterback. What do you think about them bringing him back? Do you agree or disagree? Well, the way he played for them is about as good as it got. I thought, you know what? Why not take a chance? And they did that, and it just didn't work out. And now you look at Clady, a really good offensive lineman for years and years with the Broncos, doesn't have anymore. And Revis, he was terrible last year. He had the worst year of his career. He was getting beat constantly. Again, it was time for him to go. Darrelle Revis is not the same player. So when you let all those veteran guys go, you free up cap space. And what I would do is don't spend money on free agents. And clearly, as of right now, they've not made any moves. I think it's time for them to do a complete rebuild. And who knows, maybe when Tom Brady's career is finally over, maybe they'll be a decent team. But until now, they're not going to be like that. And by the way, I don't think Todd Bowles will be the coach next much longer. I think he'll be fired after this year at the latest, unless there's a big turnaround. So, there we go on the Jets. Clearly not a good team at all. Now let's go to the AFC North. So the Ravens. Brandon Williams, he's a really good run-stopping nose tackle. They had to do it. They had to pay him, and then they got Brandon Carr. He's played for 9 years, never misses a game. According to Pro Football Focus, he is a good coverage guy, pretty good at stopping the run. He is just a consistent guy who's going to stay on the field. Does not get hurt, but he's a 9-year veteran. The toll of being in the NFL for 9 years, that streak could end at any moment now, as it's happened with a lot of players. Like Peyton Manning, he's on the field for 13 straight years, missed the whole year. So injuries happen at any point in the NFL, and now you look at Tony Jefferson. That was a great move. Matt Elam did not work out after 4 years. You had to really get that guy, and now you put him right down with Eric Whittle. Tony Jefferson is one of the better run-stopping safeties in the league. I think he was second according to Pro Football Focus. So now the Bengals. The Bengals were down last year. You re-signed Drake Kirkpatrick. He's their best cornerback, without a doubt, for the past couple of years. And if you let him go, who else do you go with? I thought that was a good move. Yes, they're paying him a lot of money, but that's what they had to do. And so another signing, Kevin Minter. I'd say he was a solid linebacker for the Cardinals for a few years. They got younger and more athletic. Ray Malaluga, and Carlos Dansby, they were old. They clearly lost a step. They're not as good as say they were 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And Malaluga was a key piece for them for years on that defense, but it was just time for a change. Had to let him go. His production was way down last year. He's not the same player anymore. And then you lose some of your line. I mean, Kevin Zittler is now on the Browns. Whitworth is on the Rams. Huge loss. Andy Dalton loses protection. I think they had to keep them. They had to keep them, but they chose to go with Dre. That's what they had to do. Maybe they draft a lineman in the first round. Of course, that does not seem likely. In all the mock drafts, I've not even seen that. Big loss for them. Will be interesting to see how well Andy Dalton does. So if there's a slip in production, I can't completely blame him as what you saw of Gurley. It had a terrible line. You can only be so good, but you need line to protect you. And that's the storyline for the Bengals. The Browns, Zettler, J.C. Treader, so you pair him with Joe Thomas. That really helps improve their offensive line. It really does. The question is who's the quarterback, as we'll get to that in a minute. That is what I would say. Improvements. Running will be better. Passing will be better. That's a good first step. And we'll see how they do in the draft. They have an opportunity to really boost up the defense and get that franchise quarterback that they have been looking for 18 years now. Okay, let's move on. Kenny Britt, he's a quality receiver, had the best year of his career on the Rams, despite having Jared Goff and Case Keenum, the worst quarterback combination in the league. He's had some good years in the past in the Titans. I thought that was a pretty good signing. Look, he's a veteran. He's not a superstar, but at least gives them a receiver. It shows they're making progress. I'd say that's a good B-. Good, not great signing. And now, I don't know how they let Terrell Pryor go. It was clear. They have as much cap space as anyone in the league. And Terrell Pryor only signed a $8 million a year for 1 year for the Redskins. They should have re-signed him. He was the best player last year. He carried the offense. He was probably the reason why they only won one game. That's a move you had to do. Of all the cap space they had, they should have spent it on Terrell Pryor, and they didn't do that. I think they would have definitely boosted the offense. I don't know why they let him go, but they did. So, Brock Osweiler, okay, you've had this quarterback problem for 18 years now. No one's worked out. Literally no one. Derek Anderson maybe for a year. And you trade for Brock Osweiler, the worst quarterback in the NFL. I mean, come on. How do you do that? How do you do that? And he's making way too much money. I think he's making $18 million a year, 16, whatever. It's twice as much as Pryor. How can you do that? The reason why they did that is they thought, he was pretty good in Denver. Maybe he becomes better. Maybe he's finally that guy. And maybe we don't need to draft a quarterback, which I think they should. So, that move is a C, D+. It's not horrible. It's borderline, maybe average. I can't give them an F. At least they're trying to get a quarterback, but he's just not the one. And I don't think that's a pick. So, draft plan. Draft Myles Garrett. Well, I've looked at mock drafts. I've looked at a lot. Pretty much from October, January, March, February, whatever. From a few days ago even. And every one, it said Myles Garrett. I can't remember one where it didn't. They get him, best defensive player in that draft. Maybe you can stop the run, stop the pass clearly, and get a quarterback. Yes, quarterbacks are the most important part of a team. I mean, when was there a team that won without a quarterback? It's very rare. They need that quarterback now. And of course, maybe if this quarterback doesn't work out, I mean, we remember the Johnny Manziel flame out from a couple years ago. They could be doing another long rebuild, and who knows? They haven't been made to the playoffs in 15 years. This keeps happening, a cycle over and over and over again. Coaching changes, general managing changes. Just get it right. Please, Cleveland, get it right. We'll see if they do. Steelers. Good move to get Antonio Brown. That was a great move. Now, they franchised Bell. I think they should have just gone ahead and re-signed him. They didn't make any other big moves. I would have spent all the cap space on him. We'll see how he does in his year. Could he leave? Great move for Brown. Best receiver in the league. He's not the tallest receiver. He's not the biggest, not the strongest, but he's one of the fastest. Great move. I mean, he's put up numbers about as good as anyone the past 4 or 5 years. Big Ben, I've heard sources, does he return? It's likely, but not definite. At the end of the year, didn't know if it would happen. Here's the thing, he's never missed a whole season, 8 games, 10 games, but he's had a bunch of years where he missed 2, 3, 4 games. Every year it seems like gets an injury, misses a game. I mean, he's extremely tough, but you see how he stands around the pocket constantly, takes a pounding. I don't know how much longer he can go, and of course he has a lot of money on the table for the next 3 years, and how much longer does he stay effective? He's 35, and it's been nearly 10 years since they won a Super Bowl. They've never really had another really good option. Now, is it possible they draft a quarterback? They're not drafting high enough. That probably doesn't happen. I would just, for as long as you can, go with the current core group, which that is Big Ben, and once it stops working, that's when you let him go. Now, if he retires, I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe Landry Jones. They obviously can't get one of the top quarterbacks in the draft. I just don't know. It's not 100%. Does he return? I'm thinking probably so. He does not want to end his career with a loss like that to New England. I say he comes back. Does it happen? Probably, but not certainly. And when the word is not certainly, that can think, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? So now we'll go on to the AFC South. The Titans, they lost A.J. Boye, the Texans, one of the better cornerbacks in the league. He was great last year. And where do they go for secondary help? It's really hard to say right now. And they lost John Simon. Again, 2 key players, but really what's great about them is the pass rush. I mean, J.J. Watt healthy. One of the better defensive players for the past 5 years. Sack monster. Can really just make every single play imaginable. And then Whitney Merciless, he did good stopping the run in the postseason. Can get a lot of sacks, double digit, 12.5 2 years ago. Clowney, he may not put up great sack numbers. I mean, we'll see. But he was great in the playoffs. I mean, that's what they need from him, finally. And look, their pass rush, it's going to be about as good as anyone in the league. All 3 of those guys at their peak. That defense is great. Who's the quarterback? Well, there was clearly Tom Savage. I heard a lot of rumors in recent mock drafts getting Patrick Mahomes. Look, he's a Texas guy, went to Texas Tech. He has a great arm, but he's raw. And I've heard reports of Tony Romo. Now, what I would do is I would try to get Romo. I don't know if it's going to happen. He's the best guy long term. Tom Savage did not look that effective. And when you look at a team without a quarterback, well, that's pretty much what they were all last year. And during that game, they'll be strong South contenders. I think that the quarterback, they can even make a run at the Super Bowl. And what I saw of Osweiler, at the time he was signed, I liked it. But he's terrible last year. So they don't have a quarterback as of right now. And Osweiler, if he didn't throw 3 interceptions in the third quarter or whatnot, they could have beaten the Patriots. I mean, I saw that defense. They were right with the Patriots, and they could have beat them. They definitely had a shot to. I mean, I didn't think, at least in the third quarter of the game, the Patriots are just going to run them over. Certainly didn't look like that. They don't have a quarterback. What do? I don't know who's going to be quarterback. We'll just wait and see. Draft Mahomes, sign Romo. Hopefully Romo is healthy for a few years. And again, I'm saying the best case scenario. They really have a good run. Pass the torch. There you go. Of course, that's the best case scenario. Unlikely that's going to happen. So, the Colts. Andrew Luck cannot keep carrying this team every year. The defense really isn't that good. Yes, they made a few moves, as I'll say in a minute. And Frank Gore's 34. You don't have that running back. You don't have a defense. Sure, you have some pretty good receivers out there, but Luck can't keep doing this. When you get a piece like that, a once-in-a-generation talent, someone like a Peyton Manning, a Tom Brady, you surround talent around them. You've got to make sure you can win now. Where 2 years ago he thought, okay, I was saying Andrew Luck's the best quarterback in the NFL. He's one of the best. Since one, I thought, Brady, maybe he's not quite as good as he used to. That's clearly not true. That was before Cam Newton became great, but then took a step back. So when you have a team like that, you build around them, you make a better team. Look, in my opinion, they've not done, it's a fact that they have not done the best job they could have of surrounding Luck with talent. So I've heard a lot of reports. They're either going to tell you what, I'll get to that in a minute. So let's move on to defense move. Jabal Sheard, he was a really good key. Did some pass rushing, helped stop the run. A key defensive lineman on the Patriots won a Super Bowl, and John Simon. He made some plays last year for the Texans. That's at least a start. And you make a receiver signing, Kamar Aiken. In 2015, with all the Ravens injuries, he put up some really solid numbers. Now is he going to repeat that? Probably not, but if he can be close to that, that'll be pretty nice. I'd give that a B minus, C plus. Pretty good. Even good. Not great, not even close. So, the Colts, can they contend for a wild card spot? So, draft Cook. He's the guy available. He's this fast running back. And the Colts really have not had a solid, great running back in 10 years. 15 even. So, that's what I'd do. I'd draft him or get a Reuben Foster, the best linebacker to come out of the draft, and then maybe another defender like a Hooker, a Jones, whatnot. Get one of those players that really helps Andrew Luck. And they're going to do one of them. How do you pick? Do you give a running back? Oh, you can't let Luck keep throwing. Give the ball to someone. Or do you get the defense? Oh, Luck can't keep saying, okay, score is 38-31. I did my part. What more can I do? You don't want games like that anymore. You want it to where Luck's the leader, his talent around him, and they're a great team. I mean, that's what they would thought it'd be. They just kept getting better, and they've been mediocre. And they need to end that cycle of mediocrity. And by the way, they fired their general manager as well, so it just shows how they put the team together. So, Jaguars. This time last year, I thought they made the defense better. I thought they definitely have a shot to make it to the playoffs. So, here's what I think. Signing Calais, look, he's about 30. He's not going to be great the whole contract. There's a chance he could be released a few years in. But maybe he's really good for them. I mean, he can really stop the run. And you look at his numbers. He's not going to put up 15, 20 sacks a year, but solid 6-8 sacks a year. That's good, not great. Let's be a good quality guy. Was the Cardinals the past 10 years. So, of course, A.J. Boye, you can match him up against some of the better receivers. Of course, in the division, there's no great receivers other than DeAndre Hopkins to match up against year in and year out. But still, that was a great move. Barry Church, good at stopping the pass, and was on some good Cowboys teams throughout the years. Oh, and here's another one. Draft Leonard Fournette. In the mock draft I've seen, draft Fournette. That's the one I agree most with. I mean, yeah, they could get a Jamal Adams. They could increase the defense, but I just don't think that's going to happen. Get Fournette. Get that guy. He might be that once-in-a-generation running back that who knows how often comes along, and maybe he's not. Sometimes guys like that become all-time greats, the best ever. Other times, they're bust. But that's a risk I'd take. So the Titans, beginning of the year, I thought, they'll be mediocre. They'll win 6 games. And I thought the next year they'd be 9, 10, 18 year. No, this is their year. So they showed great improvements. I thought they might make it to the playoffs, but then Mariota got hurt late in the year. That was unfortunate for them. Good signings. Logan Ryan, that was a good signing. Again, he was on the Patriots last year. He was a good, solid defender. Again, does not lock you down. In fact, the ball comes to him more than pretty much anyone. But when it comes to you, he'll bring them down. Good signing right there. Pass defense was a great, what's the best word to say it? A great liability. Jonathan Krypien. So he was a great run stopper. Pro Football Focus has him at a 98, best in the league, and then we'll just bring people down. So if a runner comes your way, he'll bring them down. That's going to help with the run defense all, and who knows, maybe the pass, and then drafted Jamal Adams. So they have 2 picks, obviously. They got one from the Rams, which I thought that was a great trade at the time. They'll definitely benefit. So if your first pick, get a great defender like Jamal Adams, Garyon Conley, Marshawn Lattimore, guys like that. Great pass defenders. So there you go. To pair with someone like Logan Ryan or Jonathan Krypien. And then John Ross, Mike Williams, Corey Davis. Again, some of them could be, it's possible all 3 of them could be gone. I doubt it. I think one of them will be available. Snag one of those guys. And there you go. You have someone to throw the ball to Mariota. So if they execute in the draft, get it right, those guys contribute quite quickly, they'll be in the playoffs next year, and maybe even beyond. So we'll see what happens. So the Broncos, I'd say it was more of a quieter offseason. I thought it was a good move to get Ronald Leary again, a great lineman for years with the Cowboys. Great Wall of Dallas. And he will help protect the quarterback, obviously. Good move there, but who is the quarterback? Simeon, he was okay last year in the game against the Panthers. I thought he looked great. Had his moments, but then was terrible in some games. And just wasn't the long-term option. I mean, that defense was great. But also, you may look at his numbers. He was better than Peyton Manning. Maybe he's a better player than he is right now. But he doesn't have the brain as Peyton Manning. I mean, no one does. It does not look good long-term. Lynch is not ready right now. He has potential to be really good, but he's raw. And maybe he's not ready yet. Sterling wasn't ready last year. We'll see how training camp looks and the preseason, and maybe he gets ready to start. And I've heard talks of Tony Romo. Look, when you have that defense, that was the defense that won a championship. That's an example where you don't have a great quarterback, or even a good quarterback, actually quite mediocre quarterback play. That defense led them to a championship. And now what I would do is take the risk on Romo. Maybe he's there for 2 or 3 years. He's good. And then Lynch is ready again. Same scenario that I had the Texans. So definitely heard those reports. Chiefs. Well, I'd say it was pretty quiet. But one thing they did do, maybe not so quiet after all, re-sign Eric Berry. He's one of the better safeties in the league. Hard hitter, stops the run, can even stop the pass, will create a lot of turnovers. And they signed Benny Logan down from Philadelphia. Whole stop that run defense. So, good move there. Chargers, again, it was pretty quiet, but I think when the draft comes along, I've heard of a lot of reports of them drafting Malik Hooker, free safety from Ohio State. So he'll definitely help that pass defense. And you sign Russell Okung. Again, he's making a lot of money. He's not as good as, say, he was in Seattle. He's kind of dropped off. But look, he'll help protect Phillip Rivers. I think that's a pretty good move. Again, pretty quiet. I think the draft is where they really make their impact. Raiders. So you may have heard they're moving to Las Vegas. So let's just talk about that for a few minutes before we get to their offseason. So when you talk about Las Vegas, they've never had a sports team until now. They have the Las Vegas Golden Knights, an NHL team. And it seems very likely they're getting the Raiders. I think it's a done deal. I don't know if it's completely official yet. Very likely, and they're getting taxpayers to pay $700 million for Dome Stadium. I do not agree with that. Las Vegas is not that. It's a city where people gamble. It's more of a huge money-making town. I mean, there's some extremely rich people there. Weather's not that great. It's not that big of a market. Much smaller than Oakland now, if you look at it from a standpoint. Where do I want to go for vacation? Vegas, Oakland. Vegas, Oakland. People would say Vegas. And Vegas is a smaller market. It's kind of in the middle of the Southwest, not right in the San Francisco Bay Area. I think they'll make some money. It could be a disaster. Of course, their momentum is great. And there's going to be a lot of gambling. But the thing about Oakland is, for years and years, they couldn't build a new stadium. And look, what I'd like to do is Mark Davis to pay for them to get a new stadium in Oakland. Of course, they can reject the property. But he's going to Vegas. I don't know how much is going to be funded by taxpayers, but I've heard of taxpayers funding hundreds of millions of dollars. I wish they would stay in Oakland. That's where they're kind of traditional, and the fans had to wait for 15 years for a great team. And now they're leaving after 2 years. So, we'll see what happens, and we'll give more insight on that as it gets closer in the next couple of years. So, they get Jared Cook. He's a solid tight end to throw to. He didn't really have a great tight end to throw him, so you pair him with Cooper. There's an option. Cordell Patterson. Now, here's what I would say. Throughout his career, he's fast. He's been a great return man. The question is, how well will he do on offense? Do you throw him screen passes, and can he go deep? Offense has not really been his game, which can be frustrating, which was frustrating for the Vikings fans to not have. But he can make big plays, so the question is, if he fits into their offense, and if they can get him the ball, he can be gone that quick. So do they do it? Okay move. Great on special teams, offense, a question mark. So running back, they let Latavius Murray leave, as we'll get to that in a minute. So he was a great power back for them. And you look at guys like Richard and Washington. They have speed, but where's the power? I don't know where it is right now. Those guys do not have power. So we'll see what they do if they make any other moves. I've heard some talks. I don't even know if it will happen if Adrian Peterson going there, which we'll talk about Adrian Peterson at the very end after we finish up. So Cowboys, as we now move into the NFC. Look, they lost some defense. Those guys were good guys for them. Not great, as we'll get to them right now. Claiborne, he was good last year, but he's had a lot of injury problems throughout his career. And by the way, he's going to the New York Jets. So he's an upgrade over Revis. So Barry Church, again, they let him go. I thought he was a good, solid player for them. And they also lost guys like J.J. Wilcox and Brandon Carr. So the defense, I don't think quite as good. As you look at all the guys they lost were secondary players. Again, I thought at times they were good for them, but not great. Good, but not great. So not a huge loss, but where do you go now? And they haven't not made any moves to replace them, so we'll see what happens in the draft. And later on, Andy lost Ronald Leary. Bad loss for them. Their offense may not be as strong as it once was. So the Giants, Brandon Marshall, I think that's a good move for them. I mean, he is a good receiver. His numbers are not as good as they once were. And he doesn't need to put up 100 receptions, 1,500 yards to make them great. I think he'll do similar to what Victor Cruz did last year. Now he's not going to make the plays that Victor Cruz maybe won. The Giants are better. They're getting more attention on TV more, so people obviously paid attention to the Giants more last year than the Jets. But I think he's an upgrade. Now, with Cruz's game, it was built on speed and explosiveness, and he clearly didn't have that anymore. Only showed flashes of it. Where Marshall, I think they'll can line up in the slot, throw him some passes, maybe give him few jump balls. I think he'll definitely make some big plays for them. Good move. He's a veteran. I think he'll fill in great to that role as maybe Sterling Shepard really starts to get a lot better, really starts to become a really good number 2 guy. That was a good move. That was their best move of the entire offseason. And biggest concern, who's going to be running back? I've heard maybe a few talks or two of Adrian Peterson, but I don't think that'll make sense. I don't think he's going there. And they're kind of full on cap space of all the money they spent on the defense, paying Eli. So, who's going to be running back? It's hard to say. Maybe Paul Perkins, someone like that, as they've released Rashard Jennings. So, Eagles. Now, here's what I would say. Alshon Jeffrey. So, they signed him to a 1-year deal. That's a good move. It makes Wentz better right there. But it was only a 1-year deal worth $14 million. Now, maybe we're great this year. But what if he has a great year? Can you afford to re-sign him? That's the question. I thought they should have given him more years. They should have gone all in on him. But they didn't. They wanted to see what happened. Give him more years. Maybe this is an experiment year. Great in the short term. We'll see. So, Torrey Smith, his play's really fallen off. Was that key receiver on a championship team. And his numbers have obviously gone down each year he's been in San Francisco. And I think he'll make Wentz better as well. On paper, you look at this team, you look at Dallas. They're pretty great. The Giants. This team's pretty much the same. And then you look at Washington. Yeah, we'll see. They've lost some receivers. Third place team. So, good move to get Terrell Pryor. It is for a 1-year deal. Maybe they could have given him more. Especially after Deshaun Jackson and Garcon have left. So the receiving's better. The question is, Josh Doctson ready? Barely played last year. And Jamison Crowder, I thought he was a really good third receiver. Made a lot of plays for them last year. So, you sign DJ Swearinger, a good solid safety for the Cardinals last year. And he's with Josh Norman. So again, your secondary is better. Chris Baker, that was a big loss for them. Really kind of helped them stop the run last year. So we'll see how well they are. Losses at receivers, I think they're pretty much the same team. that contends for a playoff spot. So the Bears, okay. Now their off season, it was kind of interesting. You let Jay Cutler go. I agree with that 100%. He was there for 8 years, and he won one playoff game. They were great that year, made it to the conference championship. He got hurt in that game. People have criticized him for that. But other than that, he's been good at moments, but he's been terrible more times than good. And he's the highest paid quarterback in the league. What they want to do is think, you know what? He may not be great, but he's our guy. Where else do we go with? And they finally, and I think the time has finally come, he's not. He's not that good of a quarterback. He was just too inconsistent for them to be a really good team. And Mike Glennon, look, he was Jameis's backup for the past couple of years. That was a good move to make him the quarterback temporarily. And we'll really see how long he lasts there. And again, I've heard a lot of talks of them drafting someone like Trubisky. Good, solid move. I think he's an upgrade over Cutler. Lions, so you signed TJ Lang and Rick Wagner. That kind of helps protect Matt Stafford. Running is a weakness for them. They mostly have the same team. No notable losses. Really good job to protect Stafford. I'll give them credit for that. So, Packers, you brought back Nick Perry. You lost Julius Peppers. I'm okay with that. He's 37. I don't even know how much left he has. Look, Perry was a really good pass rusher. I think he had 11 sacks last year and a good run defender. Martellus Bennett, look, that was a good move right there. That was. When you have someone like him, he'll be that tight end. He's better than Jared Cook. He'll really be an option for them as Aaron Rodgers can look around. Oh, there's Bennett. Good move. I liked it. They lost some talent on offense, yes. Lacey's gone, and on defense, lost guys like Hyde. I'm not too worried. The question is, secondary needs to be more healthy. There's too many games missed. So the Vikings, Latavius Murray, look, he's better than Peterson. I mean, way better last year than the small sample size that Peterson played for them. He was terrible. And there was no running when he was out. I think they had a historically awful running back. Clearly the worst in the league. Gives them that running back. And Adam Thielen, you know what? He really emerged last year at a 200-yard receiving game in Week 16, even when it was clear they were done. Look, I think Thielen, good move to bring him back. And we'll see if he can repeat what he did last year, or even be close to that. So, Vikings pretty much the same team. Bridgewater, I don't think he's going to play this year. He's probably out for the year. That's just how bad that injury was. Falcons. Almost no change. Pretty much the same. They brought in Dentari Poe to help with the run defense. And they lost one of the better fullbacks in the league. I mean, he was a great run blocker, and Patrick DeMarco. He was great at that. I thought that was a good... Well, again, I would have tried to re-sign him, but they probably didn't have enough cap space. The Panthers. So, Julius Peppers pull up with the pass rushing. Mike Adams, good run defender, pretty good in coverage, but their combined age is about 72. So clearly short term to help the defense get better right now. And you brought in Matt Khalil to give Cam Newton protection. That's what he desperately needs. I mean, they have some good linemen. Unfortunately, they had injuries to the line last year, and Cam was getting constantly hit around. I thought that's a smart move to give him more protection. Saints, well, their defense is terrible. Nick Fairley, pretty good pass rusher, making a lot of money for a defensive tackle. And then they signed a bunch of decent defenders like Monte Teo coming off a torn Achilles and was terrible last year and it's never really been that good. AJ Klein, who was filled in for Luke Kuechly. So there you go. Hoping the defense gets a little bit better. Really in the draft is when they have to make their moves. So the Bucks, Sean Jackson, I thought that was a really good signing. Look, you give Jameis a speed option right there to go deep with him. With Evans, great move, obviously. Now you have two good receivers. Now, being in his 10th year, the wear and tear of the NFL, he could get hurt, and it could be a bad move. But as of right now, looking at it, good move. J.J. Wilcox, that was a good move, getting him and Chris Baker. Help stop the run, help get the pass better. The question is, who they take in the draft. As of this point, I'd help upgrade the pass defense. It's gotten better. Next year's the Bucs' year. So the Cardinals, you know what? They never really did any moves to replace them. They lost guys like Campbell, Jefferson, Minter, Swearinger, guys who they kind of built around. Patrick Peterson and Tyrann Mathieu. That was a good move. Well, they just lost their defense. It's going to be worse. In mock draft, you could go for defense. I'd take a quarterback. Carson Palmer's 37. Question is, how much longer is he going to be effective? Not much longer. He could retire any year now. This could be his last year, potentially. Get a quarterback. I've heard them linked to DeShone Kizer. So the Rams, Whitworth, look, that was a good move. He's not that young. He's about 31. But Goff needs protection. And, of course, he's a great run blocker, one of the better ones in the league. He's going to help Gurley out greatly, something he desperately needs. The Rams, with Whitworth, are on better track for offense. 49ers, so what I don't get is, look, they were a bad team. And they made some moves to get some okay veterans. But here's what I don't get. You signed Pierre Garçon with $16 million, or it wasn't that much, but they gave him a lot of money. He will help improve the passing. I don't think it's worth it. They're not that good. Too much money. Brian Hoyer. He was good at times last year, but mostly he's been hurt or ineffective. So what you're doing is, and I don't even know sure if they'll draft a quarterback. Their defense desperately needs help. Kaepernick's not going to be there. Gabbert was horrible last year. Why not go with him? Maybe he helps us win a few more games. Okay. Kyle Juszczyk, he's a good fullback, but he's clearly overpaid. Guys like Marquise Goodwin, good speed. 4 or 5 wins, not 2 or 3. Look, the Niners are just trying to win a few more games. And it's going to be a long rebuild. It's going to take for years. John Lynch is spending too much money to get too many pretty good players. And that's pretty much all that they can do to get better right now. And look, the Niners are not going to win for a while. So the Seahawks, well, that's the last team. Eddie Lacy, if healthy, will improve their run game. It was a huge weakness for them last year. And they get back Deshaun Shedd. He was a solid number 2 corner for them last year. They're pretty much the same team. And they got Luke Joeckel, offensive lineman, who was picked very high by the Jaguars. I think number 2 in 2013. Just trying to see if the line gets better. So again, made some pretty good moves. Not great. The Seahawks, again, are heavy favorites to win the division. So let's talk about Adrian Peterson as we close the episode. So Peterson, he was a good player for many years for the Vikings, the best running back of his generation, but it's clear now that injuries have taken a toll on him. It's clear he's in decline. He's not the same guy that he was 2, 5, 10 years ago. He just isn't. So he's going to be a free agent for a while. I think he's going to sign up a contender, might go to Tampa. I really heard him link with Green Bay. That could be a good move. Kind of reverse Favre, help out with their running game. Maybe carries them, maybe he's that missing piece to a Super Bowl team. So we'll see what happens with AP. Hope he catches on. Hope he wins that Super Bowl. So we'll see what happens. And thank you for listening. And we'll see you on the air next time.